have to make a decision, one of the things I do is I toss a coin. And if it comes up heads or tails, then I look at the decision and I immediately think, yeah, that is what I want. And, oh, no, that's not what I want. But if you have to make a decision at random, tossing a coin, heads or tails, is one solution. So we're going to create a quick program for the Microbit chip which will randomly pick heads or tails, and then we'll display that number. So we're going to have to start by thinking, well, what event is going to start this off? Is it going to be pressing a button? Is it going to be shaking? Well, I think shake works quite well for me because shaking is a bit like tossing a coin. So it has a sort of intuitive feel to it. You know, you throw a coin in the air, you shake your microbit, and then it shows either a heads or a tails. So I'm going to use shake for that. And then I need a variable for the head toss, for the coin toss. So I'm going to make a variable and I'm going to call it coin toss. And we're going to, on the shake, we're going to set the coin toss to, well, it's heads or tails. So it's one number or another number. So we're going to use 0 or 1, but we're going to have to pick a random number. So if I go down the menus here, I think it's probably in maths, a random number. There we go. Pick a random number. So it sets the coin toss to a random number, which is either going to be, I hate it when that happens, 0 or 1. In other words, it's the first digit, 0, or it's the next one, 1. So when you shake it, the coin toss is either going to change to a 0 or it's going to turn to a 1. Then we could just do something like this. We could just go show number, and then we could just show the coin toss, so it will either show a 0 or a 1, and we would know what that means. Or what we could do is we could display it a bit more graphically. So let me get rid of that. So we could use LEDs, and then we could have an H for heads, or a T for tails, for example. But then how do we know? Okay, well, let's say if it's a 0, it's going to be heads, and if it's a 1, it's going to be tails. So you can hear the if there. So we're going to need to go down to logic, and we're going to need to get one of these if things, one of these if statements. Well, if what? Well, if the coin toss is 0, it's going to be heads. Otherwise, it's going to be tails. And you'll notice there's a little plus here. And if I click that plus, it says if something, then heads. Okay. Otherwise, make it a, whoops, not there. Otherwise, make it tails. Well, if what? Well, if the coin toss is 0, then it's going to show heads. Otherwise, in other words, if it's 1, it'll show tails. So I need to change this to say coin toss equals 0. And if I go into the logic, we've got the something equals something. And that's what we're going to need to put here. And we're going to need to put coin toss equals 0. So I go and fetch coin toss, and I put it in there. Okay, so at this stage, what I normally do is I just run through it myself in my mind and see if the program makes sense. So when I shake the microbit, it's going to make this variable coin toss and make it a random number, 0 or 1, one thing or another thing. If the coin toss is equal to 0, then it's going to show the H. Otherwise, if it's anything else, i.e. 1, then it's going to show T for tails. Well, that should work. So the next thing is to run your program to test it. So over on the emulator here, I'm going to click where it says shake. And come on, work. Let's run it. Shake. Ooh, heads. Shake again. Tails. Tails. Heads. 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 Tails. Tails. Heads. Seems to work. It's only giving me heads or tails and seems to be quite random. Nice little program, I think.